want to thank everyone for coming out. All four corners of this nation. We had people come in from Florida, State College, Pennsylvania, Southern California, Pacific Northwest, and all points in between. Wisconsin, obviously. Yes, Mom. Yes, Mom. Wisconsin, obviously.
On. Check, check, check. All right, perfect. All right, so mute this. Thanks. So thank you all, seriously. With this whole COVID thing, obviously we're bending a little bit of rules, not 6 feet apart, but more than what otherwise we would in this room. This, quite honestly, is a moment that I've dreaded for years. When Elizabeth gave birth to Matthew, the doctor, she lost a lot of blood. Those of you that were friends at the time, she was, the day we found out she was pregnant, she was diagnosed with lupus. And the doctor, the rheumatologist, basically told us, because of the antibody that this type of lupus has, it's going to be a danger to you and the baby. And so we recommend an abortion. Elizabeth was like, I'm done with you. It was a hard pregnancy. It was. Lots of high blood pressure, pregnancy-induced hypertension. I can't tell you the number of ER visits that we had to make. And she was on bed rest, I'd say the last probably 2 months of the pregnancy. And ended up getting hospitalized because her blood pressure just went crazy through the roof. And she was in there for, say, almost a week, and she was getting ready to be released to come back home. And then all of a sudden, she started bleeding. And the nurse came in just at the right time and tried finding Matthew's heartbeat and couldn't find it. And so I was freaking out. And she realized, oh, the heartbeat had slowed down to the same as Elizabeth's. The placenta's abrupting. We need to do an emergency C-section. I wasn't even able to be in there because it was so fast. I just watched from like the scrubbing area. And when she got out, I went with Matthew and Eric's wife. I was coaching high school football at the time. And Eric's wife, my head coach, Eric Donnell, Tracy Donnell, went with Elizabeth and to be with Elizabeth when she woke up. And when the doctor came, he kind of pulled me aside and he said, Steve, it got really hairy in there. She lost a lot of blood. And he went on to explain just how, what exactly happened. And when she woke up, she told Tracy the first thing she said was, I'm not supposed to be here. It was something that took us years to kind of work through what exactly was going on, the attack that went on. But that kind of planted the seed that this was going to be my journey. And in the years prior, the years leading after that, every broadcast that I would listen to that would talk about this subject, I listened to extra carefully. I don't know why. And 5.5 years ago when Dr. Badish came to me with that news of the pulmonary hypertension, she went in November 2014 with what ended up being a significantly enlarged heart, failing congestively. And he pulled me aside. He said, Steve, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news. Thanks, Gary. I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but there's a very real possibility your wife won't be around to see your youngest graduate high school. I didn't take that as a sentence. I was shocked. I was absolutely floored, and it took a good week or two for me to kind of really recover from that. Amazingly enough, Gogo, we call my mother-in-law Gogo. It's when Elizabeth was pregnant with Matthew, Deanne Gogo was at a orphanage, a mission trip in South Africa. And once the kids there found out that she was going to be a grandma in Swahili is Gogo. And she had been really wrestling with her grandma name. I'm not a granny. I'm not a grandma. I'm not this. I'm not that. She was going through the list and couldn't find anything. And as soon as they said Gogo, she's like, I'm a Gogo. And anyone that knows my mother-in-law, that's her. That's her. So when Dr. Badish pulled me aside, and he said, Steve, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but there's a very real possibility your wife won't be around to see your youngest graduate high school. I dreaded this moment. I was really hoping, really hoping, it would be 10 years from now. Because that would put the boys in their mid-20s. They'd be able to live there, grow up, possibly get married. She'd be able to see that. Maybe, be a grandma. We had talked about the very real possibility that unless there was like a major breakthrough, both of us knew we weren't going to make it to 40 years together. Or 50. But I was holding out hope. I was really holding out hope that we could find that breakthrough that would be able to keep her around. It was February of 2011. And I'd been at Family Talk for about 13 months. And I was in desperate need of a vacation. I'd done 2 trips that were cut short due to me needing to come back early before the family, or needing to come back in the middle of it. It wasn't a healthy working environment. No boundaries. I should have set up some boundaries, but it was a vacation that I was really looking forward to when we were getting ready to go to Pagosa Springs. GoGo has a timeshare, and they had a condo in Pagosa Springs, and so we were going to go spend a week there, go hit up the hot springs, and kind of rest as a family. And on the way up, like the day before, Elizabeth got a cold. And on the way up, she started to get worse. And the first day that I was there, the boys got sick. So here I was, working these crazy hours at Family Talk, busting my tail for this startup ministry, killing myself. And my first real vacation, I'm taking care of my family. I wanted to unplug and I wanted to decompress. I wanted to relax. The cold became much worse and ended up turning into pneumonia. And we went to the hospital in Pagosa Springs. She ended up spending, I think it was probably 2 nights there, and then got released. And when she came back, I was angry. I was furious. I was mad. Oh, I was mad. After the boys got down, Elizabeth was up in the bed, and we had kind of a bedroom up top. And boys were down, and I just blew up. I was like, here I am busting my tail at this ministry. And you got to understand, this is where my faith was at the time. This was very works-based, very, very works-based. Identity was in, being in the position that I was. And I was angry. I was like, I'm busting my tail for this ministry. My 2 vacations that I'd taken earlier got cut short because of work. This is how God treats me? This right here? I'm done. I'm going to look for another job, and I'm done with faith. I'm done with God. I'm done with Christ. I'm done with this whole Christianity thing. I don't know if you've ever seen Episode 3, Star Wars. But there's a scene in which Padme goes to Mustafar to meet Anakin, who had just become Darth Vader. I had to work Star Wars in. And when Padme gets there, she has this line where she says, I don't know you anymore. Anakin, you're breaking my heart. I'll never stop loving you. But you're going down a path I can't follow. It wasn't the campy dialogue and the stilted dialogue that kind of filtered through all three but that look that Padme gives Anakin / Darth Vader was exactly the look that she gave me. And it pierced me. Absolutely pierced me. I don't remember what she said, but it broke me. We wept. We talked. She had that kind of power over me. John Dale, a buddy of mine, was at the house on Wednesday. And he said something to the effect of, Steve, she made you a better man. Everyone that knows me when I was single is probably shaking their heads. Yeah, my brother Neil right there. Yeah, definitely. So the story of our dating in super short was, our first date was October 3rd, 2000, Sunny D Real Estate Concert on, it was a Tuesday. On a Friday, Ryan and I went up there, went up and hung out. We hung out, the three of us. And then on Saturday, I went back up because John was a part of an improv group in South Denver, Highlands Ranch area. And so I was like, hey, you want to come down? I'm going up to go see John. So we got together. And after that third date, I stayed the night at a friend's house. And I told him, I said, dude, we have plans on Sunday to hang out with her grandma and go to church. And I'm not feeling the chemistry. I'm not feeling the connection. I think I'm just gonna break it off and just tell her sorry. And Thomas Drayton, you guys remember Thomas. You remember Thomas. Loanne might remember Thomas. I talked to him. He's a news anchor, morning anchor in Philadelphia, the Fox TV station in Philly now. He was a morning anchor in Denver. And Tommy kind of looked at me and he was like, Steve, it's 10 o'clock at night. You don't cancel at 10:30 at night, and that's a chump move. Just go to church and lunch with your grandma. And then at the end of that, if there's still nothing there, don't go back to your apartment and watch football and baseball like you had planned. All right. Some church and lunch went well enough that we went back to our apartment. And we were watched the football game, and then we were watching the A's versus the Yankees, wild card. I thought it was Roger Clemens that was pitching, but I looked back on Baseball Reference and it wasn't. It was someone else. But we started talking and we hit a level that the thought hit me. This is a girl I'm going to marry. The first 7 days were super tough after she passed. I was like in a fog. But the 8th day, something just kind of lifted. And I was able to get some work done. I was able to make some calls for the estate, start to kind of set that stuff up. Day 9 was exactly the same. And both those days, this joy started bubbling up out of my spirit. And it was day 9 when I was out for a walk listening to some music that the thought hit me. My prayer was answered. Every night, just about every night, not every single night, but just about every night we'd pray together before we went to bed. Sometimes it was super short. Sometimes it was longer. Sometimes it was just me. Sometimes it was just her. But we'd pray. And whenever I prayed, I'd pray this simple prayer. God, finish the healing of my beautiful wife. This isn't the healing that I wanted. But everyone here that's friends with her knows of the struggles that she had with her health. She got dealt a garbage hand in the health deck. She may have been frail physically, but emotionally and spiritually, she was a giant. And she was an example for all of us. Everyone here that knew her. There's an idea that's relatively new in the psychology space called post-traumatic growth. The term wasn't even coined until the mid-90s, I found out in researching it. So it's relatively new. Rather than an event, a traumatic event, spiraling into post-traumatic stress disorder, where you keep reliving the events and declining, you go through this event and it changes you. Is this thing still on? All right, it kind of popped for a second. And that was her. I saw the way in which, after she was diagnosed with the pulmonary hypertension, she would go in these Facebook groups and she would minister to these women that were despondent about this diagnosis in their life. The diagnosis had become their very identity. And she would talk them off the ledge. She said, Steve, I think this is what God's doing.
So many of us saw it. When she would go out for coffee or dinner or a phone call or a text, how she would just encourage and pour life and speak life. And if you were going through something, she'd try and pull you out. The boys and I started grief counseling. I've had 2 by myself, and we've had 1 earlier this week as a family group. Evelyn Bodette, by the way, she teaches, Evie Bodette. She lives up in Monument. She teaches grief counseling at Denver Seminary. I highly recommend her. She's a specialist. She's freaking awesome. And in the second session, she has this little whiteboard. And she kind of draws stuff on it. And she went through and kind of gave 4 little check boxes. And she wrote out check box number 1, which is acceptance. John and I were there at the hospital. I knew she wasn't coming back. Box number 2 is basically face the grief. Go with it. Lean in when you need to. Go for it. Don't push it aside. Just go with it. It's good for you. It's healing. And then she left in a box number 3 and 4 unchecked, unnamed. And over the course of our conversation a couple weeks ago when we talked about it, while we were talking, she said, oh, that's box number 4. That's legacy. Oh, that's box number 3. That one is redefining your roles. But it was that legacy one that really kind of stuck out to me. Because I want to make sure, and I know I'm not the only one in this room, I want to make sure that she lives beyond her time here on this earth. Every single one of us here has been affected by her in some way. With my business, Reiter Media, my favorite assessment tool that I use is Clifton Strengths Finder 2.0. It's 34 strengths that are numbered 1 through 34 based on the person. And the 34 strengths are divided into 4 quadrants. The first quadrant is strategic thinking, then you've got influencing, then you've got relationship building, and you have execution. I'm everywhere except execution, which is why I need an executor around me. Her 1, 2, and 3 were all in the relationship building quadrant. Which anyone that knows her, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. Yeah, that totally makes sense. That's why her official title with Reiter Media was relationship manager. She was the one always checking in on the clients, seeing how they were doing, sending emails, letting me know, hey, there's an email you didn't read, you need to read it now. But we need to make sure that her legacy doesn't just live through the boys and what she passed on genetically. What she passed on genetically and heritage-wise. We need to make sure that her legacy lives through each and every one of us here that she touched. And it may not be in the relationship quadrant, it may be something else. I know for me, there's so many ways in which lessons that I learned from her, ways in which things she taught me. Like to never send an email when I'm angry. I'd let her look it over. Go, that falls on you now. At least for right now. It only makes things worse, Steve. It only makes things worse. But they need to hear this. But if it wasn't in the relationship quadrant, figure out what it is that she put inside of you, what kind of legacy, what kind of thing that she left with you. Take it. Pass it on. The world needs more people like her. You look at things right now, it desperately needs more people like my bride. She was taken too early. But we have an opportunity right now, all of us, to just pay it forward, to pass it on, to tell her story. I have a friend, Elizabeth. I think this is what she'd say in this for you right now. This would be the kind of advice she would give me if I were in your shoes. I know we're all going to miss her like crazy. Some of us, a lot of us here, will miss her the rest of our lives. But we have a chance. We have a chance to take who she was and take it to the world. Take it to our community, our friends, our family, our loved ones. I'm going to miss her. Oh, I'm going to miss her. But I saw the way in which she struggled here. And now she's free now. So we now have an opportunity to celebrate who she was, what she did in our lives, and pass it on. Thank you.